I'm going to call the meeting of the Land Use Working Group, the Municipal Consolidation Subcommittee to order. It's September 9th. I'm Paul Bohm, the chair. And we have one other member of our subcommittee here, Mary Hartman. Can you confirm that you're here? Okay, so let's proceed to do the business we can today. And we mentioned Tracy as the third member is not with us today. This is like a tennis game. One of us is chair, one of us is clerk. Can you take the minutes today, Mary?
Yes.
Yeah, so
D-
yeah, we'll
Go
talk
ahead.
about the minutes. There's an AI version. The last set of minutes, there was an AI version that Shannon produced, and there was a version that I wrote. I preferred my version because it was shorter, and that's what's in what we're talking about. But I think going forward, we can do either, Mary, whatever's easier, I think.
Okay.
Okay. So first order of business, a public comment on the subcommittee's work. Anybody care to comment? Okay.
Did
Seeing no,
we
yes,
did we
go.
finish our discussion about the minutes?
No.
Oh, okay.
As far as who's taking it, no.
Yeah,
Approving
good.
the minutes is the next item.
Okay.
So have you had a chance to look at the August 26 minutes, Mary, my version of that, or should I put that up on screen?
No, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Okay, just motion to approve the minutes of August 26th.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. August 26 minutes, Shannon and McCann. So if you can take the minutes going forward here. Mary. Okay. On the agenda, we have let me
Well,
just
we're missing the minutes for the meeting before that, which I
yeah,
think we
yeah,
had.
we are. I haven't seen those minutes, Shannon.
I don't have them.
I think Tracy actually volunteered to do the minutes for that meeting, so I think we need to just follow up with her.
Can you follow up, Shannon? I mean, if not, we can get uh a version of it, an AI version, transcribed version from the video, as we learned last night. But maybe she has that already done. Maybe Tracy has that already done.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's discuss the status of minutes at our next meeting. So make sure we're all caught up with those. Okay, so let me just put up the agenda so we can all see it here. Let me share my screen. Okay, I assume you're all seeing that. So we got a number of items to discuss. All of them are continuation of what we've talked about before. I'll put it up in a minute, but Mary drafted a needs assessment, and there was some discussion. I made some edits to it that I want to review in a minute, Mary.
Uh-huh.
I think the criteria to finalize the criteria. I think we've discussed that before. I was looking for a document that had a list of criteria, but let's revisit that. And then I'll call it the long list of two types of sites. The sites that that staff could be moved from, and then sites of staff to receive. So I'll call the consolidation targets, which is D, and I'll call them the vacancy targets, number C. So I think we've discussed the long list. Let's go over those again. There are some continuing data needs that we want to chat about, and then I want to get back to a standing topic that which I think at least I got an update on speaking with Carrie, and that's the funds for call it the suitability environmental assessment of at least Peabody. So with that, let me put up the needs assessment, Mary, so we can kind of look at that and finalize that. Which I think I have here. Yeah, here it goes. Okay. So this is a version of you put together on August 20th. I think there are a couple of um additions to this. One addition. I think I captured all of it. There weren't many changes, but
I don't
uh,
think this is the final version, Paul. Is
uh,
it? I don't know.
yeah, I think I agree with you on this. Um, do you have a copy of that final version? I have so many different versions floating around. I
There
know we
was
made,
one, evaluate the repurposing and the realization of revenue potential and possible reduction in FTEs. Those were the two, those were two things that were,
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, what was the last one?
um, possible reduction in FTEs,
Right. Right.
towns and the school.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think that does.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So we'll go forward. This is kind of the final version here, and this is let's call this September. What it is, September. Yeah. Okay. Are we good?
That's good. Yeah.
Anybody have any, I'll just, since everybody's looking at this, anybody have any comments or questions or additions to this? Suggested additions? Okay. Hearing none, I'll stop this share. Okay, the list of criteria. Do you want to lead that, Mary? Because I'm a little kind of lost on where that discussion was on criteria.
Well, you had some last time we spoke. I've been thinking about this um, in conversation with Judith, the co-chair, and we kind we have four buckets that we were thinking of. One was operational. That means time savings or some type of operational or productivity savings from people not having to travel, people working more closely together, things like that. So it was operational. The next category was customer service. So that would measure, does that mean that residents would have fewer touch points, fewer traveling to get things done through the town? The third one was cost. That was both cost savings from consolidation and cost revenue that we might realize through repurposing buildings. And then the last one, I called it flexibility, which is I'm referring to timing. So, flexibility has value, and some of these buildings have more flexibility than others. So I thought that might be a criteria we want to use to evaluate. And the other one we had, and Paul, this is one that I think you had originally, was something called suitability. So, um,
Yeah, and maybe that's close to flexibility. I think what I had in
yeah,
mind.
yeah, they feel I think flexibility could encompass many things. Anyway, so that was what I was thinking, and some of these can be quantified. There are ways to quantify some of these. I mean, obviously the cost. There are ways to quantify operational savings to a certain extent, and some of these are just going to have to be qualitatively described. So, what do you think? Do you want to add anything to that, or do you want to take anything
No,
off?
this is good. I think I'd want to separate I'll call it the economics piece because there's a cost savings, right? There's
Right.
operate,
Yep.
and then there's
Yep.
potential revenues.
Okay.
And I think those are certainly related, but those are important. I think the savings part, um, we'll we'll get to that in a minute. But, Matt, on behalf of Matt gave us a spreadsheet which had the operational savings of all these buildings. So at least we have a handle on that. On the revenue side, I think we're a ways from figuring out how to calculate that, exactly what that means from buildings that have been vacated and repurposed. So
Well,
so
I think Judith mentioned she's working with Mimi to get that information.
mm,
The value both if we sell it or we lease these existing facilities. Carrie has her hand up, Paul.
yeah, Carrie, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Paul, I think you might have mentioned this to me, and Mary, you may have as well. But when I spoke with Judith last week, she was talking about getting feedback from employees.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if that's something that you want to include in this needs assessment. And the conversation there, just for the rest of the audience, was specifically, in terms of recruitment and retention, would any would having offices move from one place to another have any impact on recruitment and retention from the perspective of employees?
I think that's really important. Let me try to capture that. It's probably not part the needs assessment is basically a statement of kind of why we're doing this, what the rationale is, but I think this is a criterion, and I think it's kind of staff impact is one of the criterion, and getting feedback from staff on impact, positive and negative, is what you're talking about. So I think that is another criterion, Mary. I'll call it staff impact.
Fine.
Yeah. And as far as timing, there'll be for any staff on the call, there'll be a time to do that, but we're sort of in a brainstorming part of this, and considering what's possible and not recommending yet exactly what to do. So we're sort of in the stage of, but I think that has to be incorporated. So let me read the criteria again. So we have operational considerations, which are kind of productivity related. We have customer service, whether these changes would affect customer service. We have two categories of economics, sort of operational savings, and then we have potential revenues. That's two. We have flexibility of, I assume that's of I'll call it the receiving, the receiving building, which is, I think, the same as suitability. Maybe we can combine those, flexibility and suitability. In particular, I think some discussions we had recently on just what we're talking about. There are staff issues and there are program issues, right? There are facilities that have staff and have schools. There are facilities that have staff and have senior center. There are so flexibility and suitability, I think, needs to encompass both staff issues and program issues. I think that's what we're talking about, I think. And then staff impact is the last criteria. So that sounds like a good list.
Yeah.
And Carrie, thanks for that addition. Any other suggestions, comments? Okay. Moving right along. The long list of potential sites to be considered. So let me share this other document if I can find it, which I hope I can. The spreadsheet is opening. There we go. Can you see this? Yeah. So we had
I don't think I can't see, I can see a list of files, but I can't see an open file.
okay. Let me fix that. Okay, let me try this again. It's coming. You see that now, Mary?
No,
Ah,
double click, it says. Okay, now I see a file, and this is a list of buildings
yeah,
potentially.
okay, that's the
Yeah.
file.
Good, okay,
Anyway, so we're on the topic of a long list of potential sites to be considered for consolidation. So I think at our last meeting, we went through, and we could kind of revisit that, but we went through the staff listing,
yep,
departmental listings, and where everybody sat, and we came up with a rough number of people that are in these locations. Now, there are other locations that we did not at this point consider, so we have to revisit that. One was the we were considering 141 Kais Road because that's clearly not part of Public Works, but Public Works has 133 and 135. And I think probably not at this meeting, but we need to have a conversation with Alan whether those pieces all stay together wherever Public Works goes, or they could be separated into sort of administrative versus operational. And Alan, I know you're on. It's just something that we need to discuss. I don't think we need to hit that here, but that's kind of a question mark as we went through the buildings. So no decisions on that. Hunt Recreation was not on the list. And Mary, I'm not sure where we left that, whether we wanted to have a
well, Paul,
conversation.
help me understand the difference between a long list and a short list. I thought a long list was all possibilities, and
Yeah,
then we'd
yeah.
bang it up against the criteria and then distill it down. So maybe if we're doing the long list now, we should include things like Hunt Gym, some staff there and some staff at from the DPW, and who knows if it's going to make it to the shorter list.
Well, I thought we had to, I don't want to, you're right. This is not a long list, but I thought we had gone through that exercise at the last meeting. We can go through that again.
Which exercise is that?
The exercise of looking, we had discussions about recreation. We had discussions about, for example, the library doesn't move.
What did we decide about Hunt Gym, though? I don't remember
No,
deciding.
I guess we didn't decide that.
Right. That's
Um,
why I'm saying
okay,
at this point, should we put things on there that we haven't decided yet, so that we don't lose sight of them?
okay. So let me. Okay.
Alan's got his hand up.
Yeah, Alan. Hi.
Hi, Paul. Yes, just quickly, I see you said 141 Kais Road, a building, 133 Kais Road, a building, but why not 135 Kais Road, another building? Why wouldn't we include that?
Yeah. I think that should be on
Yeah, okay.
the long list.
Alan, tell me what offices are in those two different buildings? Can you just remind me of that?
Sure. Yeah. So just to be clear, 141 is all Department of Planning Land Management.
Yep,
That's NRC, Board of Health, Planning, Building Commissioner.
yep,
133
Yep.
is Engineering Division, Highway
Okay.
Grounds Division, Highway Grounds Operation.
okay,
135 is Water Sewer Administration, the Public Works Administration, my office, and Water Sewer Operations.
got it. Thank you.
Hmm?
Yeah, as opposed to the rest of the Kai's campus was just kind of operational. The bulk of the area there, and we did have, at the risk of sharing yet another document, we do have the list of all these buildings from the pivot table that Sven put together and who's there. But thank you for refreshing that. Hey, Russell,
Yeah, I think the 133 includes 135 in the counts. I'm not positive, but the numbers look way off for 133.
so you think this is 133 and 135?
Yeah, I think just has to be investigated.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so all of Kai's Road is now on this long list.
What about Town Hall, the townhouse, as a site to be? There are some offices there that might be consolidated.
Right, but that was, yeah, I was kind of looking at whole buildings here.
Yeah,
I mean, that caps that. So there are, yes, there are some staff. But probably not that wouldn't be one of the buildings that would be sort
that's
of
right.
available
right.
for other purposes. Um, so I'm just thinking yeah, so I mean, if this were a longer list, it would include a library, for example, but and it would include police and fire too, because those are municipal buildings. But we took library, police, and fire off this as a first cut. That was on I'll call that the very long list.
I know, but I'm thinking that there might be some departments within that now are currently at the townhouse that might be consolidated,
Oh
but
yeah,
I don't see
yeah,
any departments at the library that would be consolidated. So that's why I think it's the townhouse is kind of a hybrid.
exactly. Yeah, oh, this is a hybrid. So yeah, just that's why there are other municipal buildings that are on the inventory list that aren't on here. So I think this kind of captures the long list, and I'm sorry I kind of jumped to the to conclusions here on that, but we did,
Russ has his hand up.
yeah, Russell.
Yeah, information technologies can get consolidated with other groups as well. Right now, they're taking up space at the CMLP building. So that's about 8 to 10 employees currently, I believe, in vehicles.
Did they need that space at CMLP? I mean,
The 2020 study said they needed more space. So
okay,
by taking IT and putting them into a condensed space, you'd give CMLP 8 to 10 more people spaces over there.
okay. So should we add that? Just the
I think
IT,
so.
Yeah,
the IT portion of CMLP.
yeah, I want, if I could spell, I want to kind of capture this as a separate category.
Yeah.
As opposed to facilities. And I think if this is actually captured in 133, 135, it's already here. So really the only kind of, well, we have some more triage to do, but we have some conversations. At least Alan's on this call, but nobody in recreation has been on these calls yet. But to Carrie's early point, there's staff conversations that have to take place. But this one is important because it involves sort of an entire facility.
I
Russ,
wonder. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, I heard you say facilities, and yeah, facilities has to go somewhere. We're in 3 different spaces now. We don't have a unique and definable spot to work from. That's why we're going to squeeze over to Peabody as soon as we can get in there. We're going to free up some space at the switchgear transfer building for CMLP that they want to have back, and get out of Knox Trail, which doesn't work for us at all. Free up that space as well for someone else.
Okay, so this is I have CMLP here. So this involves IT and facilities?
Yeah, IT is over on the CMLP main office on Elm Street and at the old switchgear room, building. Also, I think it's on Main Street. We have a small workshop over there. We're taking up their space.
I'm sorry,
And,
what's the address of that building?
I forget what the actual number is on Main Street. It's right where right where it splits off and one goes towards the hospital, one goes towards 62.
I think we can ignore that, well. I
But
don't know.
that's where all my staff is. That's where their computers are.
So
and
they're
everything
already
is.
going over to Peabody now, right?
Yeah, it's people count you have to account
Yes.
for.
Yeah,
That's all.
okay, okay.
So anyway, I think this is I guess the long list, combining, well, just putting Hunt up here, just to be consistent. And this is information that Matt provided on, operational costs. We don't have the assessed values on here of these properties, but you say that Judith is working with Mimi to get those? Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
it's not the assessed values, it's the appraised value.
Right,
And,
the appraised.
and what we would get if we were to lease them, not just both sell and lease. So,
Okay, so it's something we're gonna have to add to this
yes.
chart. So this is a topic on the long list of potential sites to be considered. So I think these, at this point, this is a long list.
Yes.
Do we want to discuss how to shorten these lists, or do you want to wait for the next meeting
Well,
to?
I would propose that we look at, we have our decision criteria as far as how we're going to get from this long list to the short list. And so I think it might be helpful to go back and look and see what data do we need under that decision criteria to evaluate these.
Hey, Paul,
Yes.
add one of the columns would be proposed or expected tax revenues from all the properties if they sell. You want to capture that data going forward.
That's a good add.
That's the long-term cash grab right there.
If we rented it or if we sold it, you're right.
Either way, if it goes into
That's-
private
that's-
ownership, yes.
Very good. That's a good, thank you. So that's data. So Paul, thank you, Paul. The process I was suggesting earlier was rather than us right now just going off and knocking things off to get from long to short lists, I think we need to bump each one of these up against the decision criteria that we documented a few minutes ago. And to do that, we need to figure out what data do we need. So as Judith said the other day in our bigger group, we need to think more. It would be helpful if we had data behind some of our decisions. So I think it's premature to shorten this list right now. But it would be helpful to figure out what data we need. The list. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I'm looking at the criteria. Yeah, I mean, I think to be very methodological about this, I think you're right. Taking shortcuts, I think, so in terms of, well, the criteria encompass both I'll call the consolidation targets and the consolidation entity. I don't know, the vacancies. And so the productivity considerations, as an example, isn't that more a criterion for the improvements through consolidation? Would we look at it on the other way? How are we disrupting consolidation? I'm just wondering which of these criteria apply to this long list of, which buildings can be and which staff can be moved.
Okay, let's think let's think that through. So give me an example of, what are you thinking? So let's take 55 Church Street for a minute, okay? And so
Okay.
what we're trying to ask ourselves the question, what data do we need to evaluate this against the decision criteria that we established earlier, right? So the first one was operational savings. So yes, we would need to figure out any productivity gains of moving 55 Church Street to wherever, somewhere, we don't know yet. Customer service, I think we could quantify that. Savings, we could quantify that as far as saving operational costs and utilities. Revenue, could probably quantify that. And flexibility, maybe flexibility is something that would apply more towards the buildings that we're going to. But just having this kind of a step-by-step process, I think
Yeah.
will make our going from long to short more defensible, and going from finally, when we get our short list, to getting our recommendations, or the way we prioritize when we present this to the bigger select board, it'll be more convincing because we've really thought it through.
Okay, so essentially we need to kind of produce a matrix that kind of captures what we need.
Exactly, exactly.
And so I think there are qualitative answers,
Yes,
like
sometimes there will be, yes.
productivity is probably qualitative, customer service is probably
No, I
qualitative.
think, as far as productivity,
Yeah,
one of the things that we could quantify would be, how much time do we save? How much time do employees spend traveling back and forth from buildings? That's just one way of looking at it. There's going to be some ways we can quantify it and other ways where we can't. But I think we should try to quantify it because it's another category of savings and it impacts customer service. So
okay. Well, I agree. I think we should we should state how we could quantify it, and then look at it and say, can we really do that? I mean, to your point about traveling from building to building, employee by employee,
no, we can't do it that way, but we could
how,
get some,
it's
we could get a few, and I already have.
okay. I mean, at this point, let's keep them all open. But the staff impact part of this as a criterion is
Yeah, that's hard.
well, it's quite important, but I'm not exactly sure how we apply that criterion. Um, Carrie, any suggestions if we were to, in advance of a recommendation, how we would, or is that something that occurs after sort of a high level recommendation, or put that way, phase two of this effort? Remember,
It-
phase one is each of these individual groups coming up with a recommendation. Phase two is putting these three subgroups together. What's your
This is
thought?
like, yeah, this is like the $1 million question. My hypothesis is that we have more turnover in employment than you might see in other municipalities because of the lack of cohesion that we have amongst throughout the organization because we're spread out. I think that is one significant frustration that people have is, while we don't really allow remote work, in a sense, a lot of us are working remotely from others on a very regular basis. And, I have a the cost of staff turnover calculator that I have. That's not directly related, but maybe there are some elements or some way that you could weave that into, the unintended costs of the way the organization is set up right now.
Carrie, is that across the board, or are there some sites and some departments that feel that more than others?
Well, I think it's more interdepartment. I think for the most part, departments themselves are generally together. Even though like Alan's group is spread out among a couple of different locations, but it's on the same campus. I think it's more just in working across departments. It is, it's harder because for all intents and purposes, we're working remotely across departments. And you can't build culture in a remote environment.
Yes.
So I'm thinking whether qualitatively what your hypothesis is, that there's the way we're set up right now, there's more turnover, there's lack of cohesion. Of course, we're less productive probably because of that, but that's a different criterion. And that there are unintended costs associated with staff turnover. I'm just wondering how, Mary, we kind of do anything but qualitatively state that here, or, I mean.
Where are you? You're under the criteria of staff?
Yeah, so it's a staff, because I was
Yeah.
asking Carrie about how would we assess that, and she was really talking about what she thought the impacts were, and sort of the cumulative.
You're right. I think you're right. We're going to have some criteria that we can only do qualitatively, but there's others that we can do at least partially quantitatively.
Carrie, how do we address it? Do we address I don't know how to characterize this. Staff impact. I mean, let's say, example, that Peabody becomes the consolidation entity, and all of a sudden 130 staff are now who are spread out are all going there. And so how do we assess the positive negative impact on staff morale? Or is that something do we even consider here?
Well, we're talking about hiring for this scope of work, right? We're looking at or I'm assuming that we're hiring for this scope of work.
What do
And
What do you mean?
well, this needs assessment, or are you not talking about getting some outside assistance?
We'll take it, but
Okay. I guess I was thinking, and maybe I'm stretching, like the environmental study that you were talking about for
Yeah.
Peabody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking if we were looking to get some outside assistance for this scope of work, that vendors that work in this area would have some suggestions on how to capture, what's the industry standard on capturing this type of data or information, quantifying.
Okay, so this just opened up something that I find very exciting, which is we could definitely use, I mean, I think, Paul and Tracy and I are intelligent people, and we've got Judith to help us, and we're trying to put together a matrix here and a process, but we could certainly use some help. So what do you think, Paul?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't even find the right spreadsheets or the right documents to put up here. And
Well-
which folder to look at, or what day is this?
I'm not talking about that kind of help.
No, not that kind of help. No,
No,
it's
I know what you're talking about, but it really it boils down to the scope of our activity. Maybe this is what Judith has to weigh in. So our report to the select board, do we offer an opinion based on conversation with Carrie and other managers and what the staff impact would be, or do we have to do a staff survey? I mean, those are the two extremes. One is sort of present thinking versus real data. I mean, to come up with staff impact, you'd have to do a staff survey about affected staff and how do you feel you have to do a survey. How do you feel about staying or moving? I think
But-
that's well beyond what we're talking about here.
I think, Paul, this is how I envisioned it before I saw this other opportunity, would be that our job is to put together recommendations, right?
Yeah.
So we do the best we can to get the data that we can, right? And we put together our prioritizations, which is we come up with a short list, we have the pros and the cons, and then maybe as part of our recommendations, we show, and here's data that you need to verify, or here's data that needs to be tested out. That's what I envisioned.
Yeah,
see
no, I agree. And I'll call that the phase two, that once we come up with our recommendations here based on whatever information we have to identify the gaps. What more information would
Yes,
we need?
yes. Yeah. And then phase two, of course, is what are we going to do with the land? What do we recommend doing with the land that we're freeing up if you go with our recommendations? So when I hear phase two, I think of that.
Oh, no, I'm talking about Judith's phase two. Remember this thing we're doing here is this initial phase, and then the group comes together and evaluates all these 3 municipal tracks consolidation.
Okay.
It's too bad we
Rochester-
didn't put phase A and B. It's just confusing.
Yeah, it is. It is to me too.
I'll call it phase 1B. Phase 2 is other use of the land. Russell.
I always wait for that pregnant pause. There's a couple of things we're talking about. One of them is space allocation. And that's something we're already working on with the PBD, and we talked about that Friday, and the funding was approved on Friday for that. And the environmental assessment for Peabody, just because things moving so fast, we got to get Peabody either in the mix or out of the mix, one way or the other. So, because we don't want to hold on to a building we're not going to use for long term, because that's just a financial drain nobody wants. So we're moving forward with the space assessment study, and we're going to move forward with the environmental impact stage 2 to see what kind of issues we have in the building.
Good.
And what you're talking about as far as employee satisfaction and stuff like that, there's plenty of outside resources that can come in and do the interviews, but it's going to take a lot longer than really the time frame we're working on. So I don't know if there's a way to short circuit it some way, but I don't want to confuse that with the process we've already agreed to start moving forward on.
Well, okay, let me, the process we're moving forward on, I think I'm reading your tea leaves here that you're focusing on Peabody as the entity to be consolidated, and we may be there, but our municipal group is not exactly there quite yet. Is that true, Mary?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
We want you to rule it in or rule it out quickly so you can move forward, because otherwise it's just, it's more money and time down the drain.
Yeah,
No,
well,
we
let's wait for the next agenda item. We may actually be there. The next agenda item is the potential sites to receive staff. Right now, we're talking about the potential
Well,
sites to be
Carrie has her hand up.
carried. Yes.
Yeah, if I could just make one quick item, and I think Jess just dropped off the call, so I can follow up with her. But the Personnel Board has been talking about doing some sort of employee satisfaction survey. And we have a bunch of talent on the Personnel Board, and I wonder if you might consider some outreach to them and seeing if maybe they would coordinate with you or work with you or even pick up this task to get some employee feedback on this particular topic.
Well, my personal opinion, we're going to need that, but I do think that's phase 1B of this.
Yeah, okay.
And once we kind of come up with a recommendation, we have to indicate we need more information, and these data and collaboration with the Personnel Board is something that probably happens in phase 1B. But we can identify that as a gap here. But I think the actual implementation of that is not initially what we need to do. So anyway, back to evaluate that particular criterion, which is staff impact. We I'm just thinking, we can state, Mary, that there has been turnover, there has been lack of cohesion, and there are unintended costs related to lack of staff retention, and we believe that consolidation is going to help, but we need more data on that. I mean, we could state an opinion, but
Yeah, we might end up there. I agree.
yeah, we might end up there.
Yeah, that's kind of like a scope blower upper, the staff impact thing that so I think Judith, I mean, we talked about this at our last land use working group, how it's an important consideration if we actually move forward with consolidation, but now I'm wondering if it really is within the scope of our subcommittee. So I think we want to leave it out there, but I'm not sure we can commit to getting good data to qualify that per site or per consolidation. You know what I mean?
So let's leave this particular topic by saying that in one of our next meetings, perhaps our next meeting, we probably need to tackle this list of buildings versus the criteria, the matrix. We need to go through that, and however we want to score that, 1 to 10 or plus or minus, or we'll have to figure out how to do that. But we need to evaluate this against our criterion. I assume we don't want to do that today.
Well, I don't know. As I said earlier, I was wondering if looking at the evaluation criteria when we get to the data needs, which is I think the last item on the agenda, if we can get a good feel for what's data that we have, what's data that we know we've got in process, and what's data that we've completely forgot, that we missed. So I think it might be helpful to start that today and maybe finish it the next time we meet. Are you ready to tackle that?
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, we started tackling it here by saying, we do need, this is more in the economics of both the savings and the revenues. We need appraisal of the property, we need potential tax revenues, we need leasing revenues.
Right.
So this is on those two cost criterion.
Right. So earlier when you said we kind of need a matrix to see what's the evaluation criteria, and then by site, what is the data we need to answer that question? And that I think will help me feel whether we've got the data, we're getting the data, or we need to start figuring out how to get the data.
And I think we need to set that up for the next meeting.
You don't think we should start that today? Okay.
Well, I mean, I can do a matrix in my head, but actually, I'm a pretty visual person. I'd actually like to see that.
Okay.
matrix.
Okay, we can do that next time. That would be good. That would be a good exercise.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what's
Okay,
next?
so this is our long list of sites, staff to be considered. The staff numbers aren't on here. We probably ought to add this because we do have that information for the pivot table. As far as data, we have this. Okay, next topic is to Russell's point, is the long list of potential sites to receive staff, the consolidation targets. So I think we have been thinking about 1, 2, 3, at least maybe 5 options. Let me just state that. In no particular order or desirability. Build a new building on an open piece of land. Okay. Okay, that's a consolidation option.
Where?
Leasing, well, where 2229 somewhere.
Got it.
Knock down buildings and knock down municipal buildings and build a new one. I mean, I think that's probably a horribly expensive option, but I mean, on the spirit of the long list, that's leasing, have a complete vacate the buildings and lease on Baker Avenue or some large office building.
Yep.
That's another option. The 3 physical entities we've been talking about are Peabody,
Yep.
Ripley, and the warden's house at MCI. That one, I don't have a line of sight on because I don't actually know if it's big enough for any of this. So, but right now, those are the three buildings that are on the list. So we have leasing, we have new building, and we have three existing buildings on the super long list. And
Yeah, that's good.
is there any other possibilities here? Is there any other existing building that's big enough to move, to
Well,
consolidate?
I'm thinking when we talk about leasing, we've got Baker Ave, and then I think there's property at 100 Main Street, but we need to find out if there are other leasing opportunities.
Alan,
Yes, thanks, Paul. Just real quickly, I'm sorry to throw this out there, but it's about existing municipal property that may not have structures on it that could have potential value. I'll give you a couple examples, and I just want to make sure everything's on the table.
yeah,
And I don't know if it's appropriate if I shared my screen with you or not to help, show a couple examples. Like one is we've talked about our existing wastewater treatment facility and some of the properties that, are adjacent to it. If you would like, I can share the screen and show you.
yeah,
But
go ahead.
I'll do that.
It's kind of news to me.
Okay. So
I think-
can you see the screen now? You see the
No,
GIS?
no.
Not yet?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta hit share.
There you go.
Push
All
button,
right.
push button world.
Can you see this?
No. There you
Yes.
go.
Okay. All
Now I
right.
can.
So basically, if you look, this is the existing wastewater treatment plant over off of Old Bedford. These parcels are all a part of that complex, including as you drive in the access way, there's a parcel of land over here that is part of the original ownership for wastewater. So that's an example of municipal land that doesn't have restrictions, it hasn't been developed, and it's not insignificant. So I think we need to at least, acknowledge or identify property like that. Another example is,
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Was that property identified in Megan's original matrix of sites that?
No,
I don't recall.
no.
Another area, which is, when you start looking closely, and again, we're all doing this on our, free time, right? It's not easy to sort of capture a lot of these details, but when I look at, where am I here? I gotta find the school. Over here, this is the Alcott School. See that?
Yeah,
This is our well, Hugh Cargill well. We have this very unusual property. This is all the water supply land. And again, why is it configured this way? I have no idea. It's not directly related to the water infrastructure. It was just at some point, this is the garden, the Hugh Cargill Trust public garden area. Here is access into the school. There's a potential of getting creative with parcels, areas of land like this that may not have a need for water supply. I put that out there, not, to be selfish, but to understand these are municipal lands. And as we're trying to get creative, if we know that that's not going to be used for a water office, then it's unlikely to be used for something else. It's adjacent to the school property here, but when you look in relation to the police and fire over here on this parcel, which is in a tight area, but I've just put it out there. These
What
are
about the
examples of
landfill?
you know,
Alan, what about the landfill?
the landfill, another example of municipal property that here's the landfill. And what you can see is right now, this is the old capped area here. This is the solar array, which is they're looking to expand that on the formerly capped landfill. This is the area that we use very actively for compost and, sort of debris and storage for, storm debris and that sort of thing. And we also use this campus for storage of equipment when it's not used. One of the challenges we have with Public Works is we don't have the capacity to store all of our equipment on one campus. Again, a challenge, but, Mary, to your point, these things all need to at least be identified, and, then you can sort of filter through. But, and right now, one of the things is we have a lease, which we're looking to for, a cell tower. So those lease agreements have to be factored in, because those would be when and if could something be made available. So it's just examples. Those are 3. And I put them out there because there's probably more, but, that's areas that I'm aware of, right now. So that's I think a consideration that we have to have on the table.
I think for
Well,
the purposes of this subcommittee, which is to look at targets for possible consolidation, I think Paul opened up the idea of building something brand new. And I think these sites would be possible locations for something brand new. That's how I see it works into the work that we're doing. When we bring it all together with the larger land use working group, that's a much broader conversation. There might be other subcommittees that have ideas for some of these parcels. In fact, I think they do. So that's, for the work we're doing now, I'm thinking Paul, to your build something brand new, I think it would be, those 3 sites might be something to consider under that category. What do you think?
Well, I think they're examples. I'm not sure what to do with those. On the economic side, because we haven't talked about applying the criteria to this side of the equation, right? Which is the economics of consolidation, which is renovation or build, right? That's
Right. Right.
we're either taking an existing structure and renovating it or building a building.
Yep.
I think we'll have to get that information. We'll have to determine, what square foot building would be ideal to accommodate these needs, and kind of rough cost on capital costs on a new building.
Yes. Rough.
And the other factor is it's important for people to understand there may be no fly zones that are put up there because of one particular interest. I'll be clear, we've been leasing the area by the wastewater treatment plant because it's good sand and gravels for agriculture. There's a very strong contingent of don't touch that land. Well, we were leased it as a temporary measure for sort of beneficial use, not to then be prohibited from developing a future public works campus. But you then do that, and now you're going to have a neighborhood. People need to understand there's going to be, pros and cons. And we oftentimes box ourselves into we have no choices because no one will accept us. But I think we have to put it all on the table so people can recognize, where's the best interest of the town, and maybe it isn't redeveloped for municipal purposes. Maybe it's sold for, housing. Who knows? But that's part of the trade-off I think we're all looking at.
You're talking about the land that's leased for farming near the.
Well, that's one area. I'm talking about the landfill that's actively used for municipal public works operations. I'm talking about the area next to Hugh Cargill Well, which is butts, the Alcott School. All those are areas of municipal land without restrictions. That's, I think, the key.
Is the land in front of the Alcott being used for anything now? That's
No, it's as I try to show, it's a very unusual lot, but again, not by, I think, design. I think by just because it was picked up as you can put a water supply here. This is the lot. The value of it didn't matter. You know, oftentimes it does allow some flexibility, but like everything, there's going to be, you know, trade-offs for, you know,
But is it
relocating
being
or
used now? That was
redeveloping.
my question is it being used now?
Presently, no, it's open space. But under the guise of water supply, just like, you know, the landfill or the sand beds, when I showed the wastewater treatment plant, you could actually say they're presently not being used, but that's where we would expand the wastewater potentially over there for groundwater. Just, these are the shades of gray. And I just think for this group, should at least be aware of it, especially if there's any questions or, you know, have you thought about X, Y, Z? Good idea to at least be able to say yes and or no, but it's not new information.
Yeah, you know, Mary, part of what's in my head is a desire to simplify wherever possible. This kind of takes us in the opposite direction, and maybe it's appropriate. But you know, I brought this up, you know, building a new building in an
You
open space.
did.
I did. That doesn't mean we have to consider that as an option. Maybe that's too long a list. Maybe that's a
I'm kind of with you there, Paul.
yeah. Maybe just to scratch that itch in our, we would probably need the cost. You know, what would it cost to build a municipal wherever the land is, without looking at individual properties and without applying an additional criterion, which would be competing interests, right? Alan brought those up, but the competing interests even within our work, you know, public safety versus public works. I look at some of these, I said, oh, public works could go there. Oh, fire station could go there. So there's competing interests, and I think we have to apply that criterion to this set of receiving properties. I don't think I want to go there. But
Okay, so how about instead of that, putting 2229 Main on the list?
yeah,
Because I know when you brought that up, I said like, well, where? And you said 2229 Main, for example. So we could keep that as a placeholder.
yeah, I'd keep that as a specific placeholder, and the important piece of that is to estimate what the capital cost of building a new building.
Yes.
I think
Okay. Yep.
that's the piece we need to have. Wherever a building
Okay.
go, you know, what's it going to cost? And you know, I'm sure we can get the estimates to build a building of certain square footage once we figure that out. So that should be our placeholder right now.
Great.
And so that feeds right back into the criterion on costs.
Yeah, I'm trying not to make
specific.
it more complex. I just put the information out there so at least you can decide yes, no, whatever. That's all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're a complex guy, Alan. What can I tell you? You know?
He's a big thinker.
Just facts, just facts.
No, it's very worthwhile. I didn't know those properties existed. It's more secrets of the town. So, but I think to simplify, Mary, I think let's designate 2229 as a possible open space. Let's get some kind of estimate on building a building, and so that'll kind of take care of that little niche. So that's a data need we're going to get. Back to the other buildings, Ripley, Warden's House, and Peabody. So that is the long list. I'm just wondering if we could shorten that on this conversation.
And leasing, the leasing.
Oh, and leasing. I
Four.
don't think that's still out there. And I had a brief conversation with Kerry about leasing, and I think there's not a great cost advantage to the town to do that, but we haven't analyzed that cost. So I think I'd keep it on there. The leasing.
Yeah.
So you want to talk more about those three buildings and whether we can kind of shorten the list here in this call?
No, I don't think we're ready to shorten the list because we haven't gotten the data to evaluate it against the criteria that we established earlier today. So
Yeah.
I
Okay.
guess I want to make sure that we're disciplined in that we do these things based on criteria and data so that we can defend them later on instead of making these, broad decisions in a short meeting. In a meeting with only two of us here.
Yeah, and just to say what's on my mind, I think that
Well,
of the two school buildings, Peabody and Ripley, having been in both, I think in my mind, one is suitable and flexible. The other one is, I think Ripley would really be tough to consolidate anything in.
and I think when we evaluate it against the criteria that we established, we'll come to that. And so it will be, we can defend it based on the criteria that we've established. So my gut tells me that too, but I want to make decisions based on data and not our gut, you and me, our gut feelings. So I propose that we spend our next meeting by looking at both of these groups against the decision criteria that we established and deciding, again, do we have the data that we need? Or are we in the getting the data that we need, or is there data that we completely forgot about and we got to go out and get it so that we can start filling in this matrix that you described earlier, which is here's the
Okay.
criteria, here are the possibilities, what data do we need to answer the question in each of these boxes. I think that would be helpful. When we come to the staff impact, that might be where we definitely need to get outside help. But let's wait and see. I think if
Yeah,
we go
no.
through this, I will feel a whole lot better about, are we really being structured about this? And do we know how to make recommendations that we can stand behind?
And I agree. Thank you for checking my impatience.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're right. Okay, so I think we have the long list of both types of sites.
Yeah.
The review of list of data needs. I think some of that we know right now, and it was sort of the matrix they put out on the properties. We had some empty columns about appraisal, et cetera. And there are other data needs that we're going to uncover when we do this
That's right.
criterion assessment.
Well, can I ask you to put together, since you seem to be a really whiz with spreadsheets, put together this matrix that, again, across the top would be the decision criteria, and then the rows would be both the sites that we're considering consolidating and then the sites that we're targeting for consolidation. By that, I mean receiving, to use your word, receiving. And then we can just go down each and say, do we have the data we need to answer each of these?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. We
that'd
can
be
put
great.
that in the minutes. That's my to-do list.
Great. Okay, good.
Uh,
And then
whether
that's a lot of work that we can do next meeting, and then go off and chase the data that we still need, or we'll see where we are.
okay,
I think we should make
we'll
that meeting soon. What do you
we'll
think?
talk about that sort of at the end here.
Okay, I'll wait. Okay, go ahead.
One more agenda topic is the issue of the environmental assessment, the suitability assessment for what? For the 3 buildings on our long list, or just the
I just thought
Peabody?
Peabody,
Okay.
but
Okay.
maybe that's wrong. Maybe we should do it for all. What were you thinking, Ripley?
Well, if we just did it for Peabody, we'd be short circuiting our criterion. But I mean, I want to be practical about this. I want to spend money where I would. Well, we certainly can hold off through our next meeting. But I would say the question right now is money for for at least one assessment, which would be Peabody.
Okay.
And Carrie or Russell, do you want to say anything about Carrie about the funds for that assessment?
Yeah, so I know Megan verbally reviewed a memo with you at your meeting, the full group meeting last Friday, and is following up with a written memorandum. The funds that we set aside from ARPA are related to public safety and public works. the feasibility of those two sites. I do think based on information that Megan and Russ have provided, that we can make a case for looking at the Peabody. I'm a little less convinced when you start kind of extrapolating that over other buildings that we wouldn't be considering. And as I've said in other meetings, we have a heightened awareness of how the federal government is viewing ARPA, and they're really watching over how these funds are being spent in ways that they haven't in past years. So I have a little bit of anxiety about trying to apply a liberal interpretation to the use of those funds.
Well, as far as the various buildings, I think, we should be methodological about this. Let's wait till we apply the criteria and decide, is Peabody the target? So we don't have to rush that, Mary. We can wait till at least one more meeting to kind of make
Well,
that.
I thought I heard Russ say earlier that they were moving ahead with it.
Okay.
The re-
Yeah,
the re-
we're moving ahead with Peabody because there's financial considerations with Peabody and holding costs. And if it's determined we don't want to invest in that building, we should divest that building sooner than later.
Yeah,
So is that moving forward with some funds from somewhere?
yeah.
These,
Well, we're hoping the funds that were talked about yesterday or Friday are the funds that will pay for the architectural that we're looking at now.
the two items that were presented were this whatever we're calling this environmental study for Peabody, and the second thing, that just some basic architectural assessment. My understanding, and I wasn't at the meeting on Friday, my understanding was that the committee as a whole wanted to move forward with those two things.
Yes.
And I think those two things are within the scope of the funding requirements that we have, the ARPA funding requirements.
Well, yeah, I certainly would be in favor of that. I just didn't want to preempt our previous discussion about shortening the long list, but I think that we're definitely headed towards that, and we already have staff. The ultimate consolidation target or just temporary. I think there's reason to do that. So I guess that isn't the answer to that. It's in progress. Is that something?
What should I call that study? Russ, give me some words because I'm taking the minutes. So is one
We're looking at an architectural high-level space use analysis for the Peabody School
okay,
to see if all of the properties on the list would fit in there.
okay,
We're not coming up with any kind of cost assessments. We're looking at a space use study, which will also have some things looking at the septic, power requirements, parking, future energy use, that kind of thing.
great, okay. And the other is just
The other is a level 2 environmental assessment that's yet to be kicked off. That will do random sampling of materials in the building currently to see what level of asbestos, mold, PCBs, other harmful elements are in the building that need to be removed. And we'll also come up with a ballpark cost based on square footages and linear footages of what it would take to clean the building up.
great.
So those are the first two. Find out if you're going to fit, find out if you want to fit. That's how I characterize it.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, that's good news. Okay, I think we've reached the end of our agenda. Anything else, Mary? So that's good
No,
progress.
good. It's
I
a good
think
meeting.
applying the criteria to these two long lists, I think, and I think we've captured the criteria quite well. Yeah, that should be the basic agenda at the next meeting.
Yep.
So as far as the timing for the next meeting, like in 2 weeks.
I'd like to do it in a week. Are you
Mhm.
available
Um,
next Tuesday at 2?
Mary, would you prefer that I send a calendar poll out? Just, it seems like this time might not work for Tracy. So I could send something out if that's helpful.
That would be helpful as long as we put the options soon.
Yeah, I can do it today, Mary.
I'm sorry, so what are the options?
I was just gonna send like a calendar poll out to the three of you. Just
Okay.
then Tracy has a chance to respond to.
Yeah, I think next week could be good, get Tracy back in the groove here. She's, we have to find out, Shannon, whether Tracy can join us for the future meetings, and let's do it next week, yeah. Sometime.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. What did you say, Shannon?
I'll send something out today.
Great.
Okay, any other public comment? We've had sort of an open meeting as it was. It's very, very helpful. Russell, Alan, Carrie, thank you. Gail, hi. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, so I had written a comment because I was late here. Do you want me to show my face or does that, I don't know if people care.
Nice photo.
Yeah, nice
Thank
photo.
you. Anyway, I'll just start talking and see if my face shows up. I think I clicked the video button. Yeah, so I just want to say that town offices are often the place that new or potential new Concord residents like have their first interaction with town staff. And in addition, visitors may notice town hall as they're driving or walking through town, or they might see other municipal buildings. So I thought it was really critically important to keep in mind that municipal offices should represent Concord's values and be welcoming to visitors. And to me, this includes like a well-maintained appearance, accessibility, ease of parking, ease of finding a human when you walk in the building. And I also think municipal offices are an excellent opportunity to display and promote Concord's assets like our history and our natural resources. And I think the town does a pretty good job with the existing spaces, albeit they're spread throughout town. But I just wanted you folks to have that in mind as you're thinking about consolidation.
No, I appreciate it. I think we captured in one right criterion, customer service. It sounds pretty industrial, but it really is. It captures what you're talking about, Gail. How how the town offices become an entry point, for visitors and for new residents. So I think it captures it.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, are we adjourned, Mary?
Yes. So it's
Okay.
so moved.